Okay, today's a special episode. I've invited John Fraze to talk to us about the controversy Johnny C. Taylor, CEO of SHRM, announced on, ironically, Black Women's Equity Pay Day, that SHRM is going to take the E out of DEI. They're no longer focused on equity. They're going to lead with inclusion, and the HR world is losing their freaking minds. If you've been on LinkedIn, you've seen people outraged. How dare they? Why don't they care about equity? SHRM is losing touch. They're playing to the far right. They don't care about people. Okay, here's my take, and then I want you to react. I think these HR people are getting it all wrong. This is a strategic move. Let's offer some context. Johnny is a Black man, okay? I think it's very unfair to say that he doesn't care about equity. This is someone who is trying to make it work. Kamala Harris being referred to as the DEI candidate. That means that DEI has completely lost touch with its actual meaning. People are thinking affirmative action when they hear DEI, and I think they're rebranding it in an effort to make it still be effective. And HR people are kind of showing their cards that they don't understand strategy and business, and they're just kind of like, but what about the people? And they're totally missing the point. Your thoughts?
Yes, this has been a disaster from the beginning. And so taking the E out is basically de-risking the diversity equation, which I think is fascinating. So on the diversity side, yes, diversity is a good thing. Lots of different thoughts, backgrounds, bringing different brains together with different experiences to solve problems, fantastic. Inclusion, yes, we should all feel included. Equity, that involves math. What is equity? How do we get that right? It's not equality. How much do you need that's different than what this person needs? Equity is a landmine that leaves it up to the user to figure out how much or how little of extra benefits or extra help or extra support does somebody need. This is fraught with disaster in a public market. This is a huge problem. By taking the E out, what they're saying is, I think most of us can get behind diversity and inclusion. Equity, nobody knows really what that means anyway. We've gotten it wrong from the beginning. So let's just remove it and focus on the two things that are the most impactful and will create the most positive result in our business cultures.
Right. He's saying we're failing so hard at DEI right now that we need to change strategies, and let's get some low hanging fruit. Maybe we could just get inclusion right, and then we can graduate to equity. And I don't think that he's saying he doesn't care about equity. I think he's saying we've got to try something different because we have totally screwed this up.
Oh, the subjectivity of equity is so dangerous to create extremes on both sides that it's fraught with problems. This is the great divisive piece of DEI is the E. It doesn't mean that it's not important, and there is a way to get it right. But left to the world to figure out, it is very, very dangerous. And that's why the D and the I are the places where we should really focus, at least initially, before we can move on to E.
And he's starting with I, which is a lot easier than the D part, right? He's saying we need to lead with inclusion. If people don't feel like they belong, then we have nowhere to go, which I don't disagree with. It's also, I would say, one of the hardest because D and E can be measured in math very simply. How many Black people have you hired? How many women have you promoted? What is the pay equity across these different demographics in your organization? But inclusion, well, that's a feeling. And people don't like talking about feelings at work, right? I mean, it's too
Yeah, but
touchy feely.
what he said here, though, is he said inclusion for all. And what's
Right.
interesting about inclusion for all is, again, let's broader tent, everybody should be included. And I think that's really important. And I think people would argue that you can't measure equity. You can't measure, are we doing more training for one group than another because they are historically left out of the education process? Well, who decides that? It's fraught with
Well,
trouble.
you can measure pay equity. I mean, that's
Oh, pay
kind of
equity is different. Pay equity is different. Yes.
right. Okay. So Granite Construction, multi-billion-dollar company, they changed DEI like a year and a half ago. They called it inclusive diversity. So their approach was let's lead with inclusion and talk about diversity, but not DEI. We want, because DEI, they said, this is from the mouth of an executive, they said it made Black men feel like not Black men, white men feel like they don't belong. DEI wasn't for white men, but inclusive diversity, they felt like was more all encompassing, so to speak. So this actually isn't new. Maybe Johnny's taking a playbook out of their playbook. No, page out of their playbook. Whatever. You
Yes.
talk.
No, I think it's hard when you put a stake in the ground, especially on something as emotional as DEI, to then say, wait a minute, we need to adjust this, or we might have gotten it a little bit wrong. And this is a pragmatic story. This isn't about, DEI was about those people, whoever those people are, right?
Yeah.
This inclusion story is about all of us. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it took us a long time to figure out that in order to get everybody on board, you have to have everybody under the tent, right? And so this is a very smart move by Johnny, who, by the way, has the most beautiful suits of anybody in the HR world. I'm always very impressed with his tailor. Johnny Taylor's tailor.
Wait, we have to stop talking. We're way over our time. Okay, and
No,
you know who's gonna love this is L&D people. They're like, oh, we can't wait to start talking about the new definition of inclusion. Gag me. Okay, talk to you later, John.